The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. NASCAR, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your host, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, I would say that the gang is all here, but we're kind of there, and there this morning. I mean, that's about the best way I can explain it. Good morning to you, and happy Thanksgiving weekend. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson here. Producer John Myers, he is in the room, so to speak, but he's not going to be able to join us a whole heck of a lot because he's going to be in Command Central. If you notice with the background here, and if you notice Matt's background, we're not in the same place. Matt, where are you?
Well, yesterday started in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and finished the night in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting story that I heard a bit about yesterday, but we'll maybe save that for a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll save that for the rainy day.
Yep, and I'm sitting at the house. This is back here, part of the collection of the diecast collectibles that I've got. John's at his place as well, so if there are any glitches, hey, it's one of those things. We're trying something new here on this Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you and your family are having a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving weekend wherever you are. And let's get started here because we're going to look back at the final race of 2022 of all the major series that we cover and all the fallout from it as the 2022 racing season ends. We look forward to 2023. Yeah, I said it. It's not even December, but hey, it's the racing world. Very, very little off season. And if you are fairly new to the Championship Racing Network, we tend to go year-round. The only time we're not going to go year-round is going to be if Christmas and New Year, which are exactly 1 week apart, happen to fall on a Saturday. They don't this year. So we're going to be live year-round here. So from the on-track recap to all the news from Formula One, NASCAR, Indycar, and the NHRA. In other words, what you'd expect right here. And maybe we'll dig into Matt's plans for next week as well. All of that is coming up in just a couple of moments. Plus, maybe we'll tell the story of why Matt is not in Blue Ridge, Georgia, but in Charlotte, North Carolina. All that and more coming up right after this on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
So as you know, we cover several major racing series throughout the course of a year. The last major racing series event of the year took place in Abu Dhabi for Formula One. As noted over the last couple of races, titles not on the line. Max Verstappen and Red Bull wrapped those up a few weeks ago. But there were other storylines to talk about and the final standings to confirm, and with plenty of potential movement up and down for both the drivers and the teams. So here we go. The two-time defending champion started on the pole. To nobody's surprise, he ends up claiming the race win. So there's Max Verstappen again. That extends his single-season series wins record now to 15 in a year. Now, remember, this could be broken. We have seen guys who dominate a season, Matt, throughout a course of a year and win 10 or more races in a year in Formula One. That's regular. And with next year, 24 events coming up on the schedule for next year, 15 is not one of those things that's insurmountable. It's a lot, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah, it's definitely not. But, at the rate Max Verstappen's been going this year and been going the last few years, nothing's impossible with Red Bull anymore.
That's true. So second place was what was really meaningful, and it meant second place. It was a race for second in the race between Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez and the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, and whoever got that was going to end up finishing second place in the final point standings. After the race, Ferrari officials admitted that they did try some misdirection, and it worked. They began at some point in time fairly early acting like that they were going to call Leclerc in. They were hoping Red Bull would bring in Perez earlier than what Red Bull had planned, and that particular bit of chicanery, shenanigans, whatever you want to call it, shenanigans, worked. While Leclerc only pitted one time in the race, Perez ended up doing a 2-pit strategy and was left trying to play catch-up. It almost worked. Almost. Leclerc finished the race in second place. Perez, third, trailed by Carlos Sainz and the other Ferrari. So Red Bull, Ferrari was your top four, with the Mercedes of George Russell fifth. Lando Norris and his McLaren sixth, the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Daniel Ricciardo finishes his final full-time season, at least for now, in his McLaren inside the top 10 and ninth. He just edged out Sebastian Vettel in his final Formula One race, probably ever. He's retiring from F1, he says. Could he be coaxed out? Maybe. But anyway, yeah, his final race in the Aston Martin, he finishes just inside the top 10 in 10th. So here's your final point standings. Max Verstappen, 454. Nobody was going to catch him, obviously. He had the title wrapped up after Mexico. 308 for Charles Leclerc to 305 for Sergio Perez. Then George Russell with 275. Carlos Sainz, 246. The 7-time champ, Lewis Hamilton, had been coming on strong over the last 3 or 4 races, but he had a tech problem and did not finish in the points in the final race of the year. So officially, he finishes 6th in the final standings with 240. Lando Norris, 122, all by himself in 7th. 92 for Esteban Ocon. 81 for Fernando Alonso. Valtteri Bottas holding 49. 37 for Daniel Ricciardo on 11th, and the 4-time title winner Sebastian Vettel finishes his final year in F1 in 12th place in points with 37. To round them out, Kevin Magnussen, 25, 23 for Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, 18, 12 for Mick Schumacher. Don't know what he's doing next year officially. We've got an idea of where he might end up. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's tied with Yuki Tsunoda at 12, but Mick Schumacher holds the tiebreaker for the higher finishing place throughout the season. Zhou Guanyu 6, 4 for Alex Albon. Nicholas Latifi, yeah, he did actually claim 2, tied with a guy who ran 1 race, Nick DeVries. And then Nico Hulkenberg, he was a COVID fill-in early this year, but he missed out on scoring points on his 2 times. So we'll be talking a lot more about him coming up in the news as well. Here's your final Constructors' Cup standings for the year. They start off with Red Bull in a dominant 759 points, 554 for Ferrari, with Lewis Hamilton not scoring points. It doomed Mercedes' hopes of jumping over Ferrari, so they end up in third with 515. After winning everything, basically, Matt, from 2014 to 2021, it's kind of a slide.
It's quite a bit of a slide, if you ask me.
So
to to go from that and scoring the 29 or 39 points below Ferrari, that's a bit of a slide.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting to see if they can rebound the strange little tech that they had when it came to their. It was questionable. They Formula One and the FIA allowed it for this year when it came to, I want to say it was the wings. All that tech is now gone. They can't use it again. This was the 1 year they were given the pass, but for 2023, that's gone. So they got to go back to the old way of doing things, which is what everybody else is doing. So we'll see whether or not that evens things out.
Right.
Alpine is fourth, holding 173. McLaren 159. Alfa Romeo at 55, tied with, but holding the tiebreaker, also with Aston Martin. Haas F1 finishes the season with 37 points, 8th place officially, just 2 points ahead of AlphaTauri. Williams finishes the year with 8. As we noted, all major series are now done with their seasons. So what now, you ask? Well, we've noted this on the show many times. We said it during the opening tease. We're going to continue with the show because the one thing that we found over the course of years, and we've been doing some version of the show now for, good grief, well over a decade now. We found that quite often we find that there is more news happening during the off season than happens during the season. So yeah, our plan is to continue weekly. As I said, we might take a weekend off here or there, but the plan is to continue each and every weekend of the year because there's just that much news. And it could come from any one of the major series that we carry. And again, if you're new to the show, we cover all 3 top series of NASCAR, which will be the Cup Series, Xfinity, and what will officially become, after the award ceremony, the Craftsman Truck Series. I'm just going to go ahead and start calling it that now, with all due respect to Camping World. Sometimes we cover ARCA. It depends on how big the news is. So I'm not going to say that we don't, but I will say that we cover it sometimes. So that's not one of the ones that we cover on a regular basis. We cover the NHRA, the Camping World Drag Racing Series, which is Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle. And we've also been kind of fascinated by the Constant Aviation Factory Stock Showdown. So we cover that as well. So we go from there and we start to cover in Open Wheel, which is IndyCar here in the U.S., Formula One, which we just talked about, and we cover Formula E, which started off as that curiosity, but has actually started to make some inroads. And we'll talk about some other series as well, especially when they come up. The Ray Evernham, Tony Stewart Superstar Racing Experience. We're talking about that. We talk about the W Series fairly often just because of the fact that there's been a lot of controversy between what the W Series is trying to become and what the FIA and Formula One are allowing. And that's really why we're kind of going down that road as well. So that's what we have on tap, and we're going to cover it as much as we possibly can throughout the course of the season. That's what we do. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the news. And because it was the last racing series and because we want to break down all the details of the final race of the year and kind of give you stats and news, because a lot of movement happened right after the race happened, we're going to get into that as well. So we're going to start with Formula One. When we come back, we appreciate you checking us out on this Thanksgiving weekend.
Right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, like I said, since they just ended their season, let's go ahead and begin our racing news this week with Formula One. Fans did have their say in his final race. In case you have not been a regular follower, you can go online to, I believe it's F1.com or Formula1.com, and you can vote for your idea of who the driver of the day is. And they gave it to the retiring Sebastian Vettel, who again finishes his Formula One career with a pretty impressive record. So let's give you an overview of it. His first Formula One race, the 2007 U.S. Grand Prix, which was rather ignominiously run on the Indy road course the last time it was there. And in between then and last Sunday, racked up 53 career wins, 122 podium or top 3 finishes, 57 pole positions, and oh yeah, those 4 straight Formula One titles. Over his time in F1, he drove for BMW Sauber. Yeah, BMW at one time was a title sponsor of the Sauber racing team, along with Alfa Romeo and soon to be Audi, among others. Anyway, midway through the 2007 season, he moved to Toro Rosso. He stayed there in 2008 before he jumped up to Red Bull, the main program there. And as we noted, from 2009 to 2014, claimed his 4 straight titles, the first of which in 2010 officially made him Formula One's youngest ever title winner. He became only the 3rd driver in history to claim the title after having never led the points during the season, which is an interesting one. I mean, you've been a driver, Matt, you know this. When you're playing catch-up throughout the course of the year, and obviously he was never that far out, but if you've never led the points at any one point during the year, and to be able to claim that points title at the very end, you have to have a lot of things kind of come into your favor.
Oh, absolutely. You got to have it. Everything, as the old saying goes, everything has to fall right into your lap for that to happen, and it did.
That it did. So congratulations to him on that move from Red Bull to Ferrari to race with the legendary team from 2015 to 2020, but it was just never the same. Then finished out a storied career with 2 years at Aston Martin. Wins, titles began to start eluding him, but he said this: he's not retiring from racing. Many-time competitor in the Race of Champions, representing his home country of Germany, which he's set to do again in early 2023 as they get back to doing that. As to his other racing exploits, only time will tell. Truth be told, we're not really sure what he's got planned, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. He holds numerous Formula One titles, including most pole positions in a season with 15, most laps in a season at 739, most laps led, I should say, in a season, 739, 9 consecutive race wins. I'm wondering whether that can be beaten. I mean, we're looking at what Max Verstappen's doing now. At one point in time, at the height of his powers with Mercedes, I might have said Lewis Hamilton could have done it, but he didn't. Could Max Verstappen be that guy?
If anybody is a threat to do so, it's definitely Max.
At least for now.
For now, yeah. And maybe somebody down the road may slip up and be an even bigger threat to Max and that 9 straight race win total. But as of right now, it's just Max has got the best shot to do so if it was ever to be broke.
I agree. He's got 2 consecutive Grand Slams. In Formula One, this means you won the pole, you won the race, you got the fastest lap of the race, and you led every lap. He did that 2 times in a row. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. Most wins from a pole in a season at 9. He's the youngest Formula One pole winner. He did so at the ripe old age of 21 years and 72 days. He's the youngest driver to win a pole and a race, 21 years, 73 days. That gives you an idea. He did it the very next day. Youngest driver to score a hat trick, which is consisting of the pole win and fastest lap, 21 years, 253 days. And as we noted this, he's also the youngest driver to claim a Formula One driver's title, 23 years, 134 days. Youngest driver to finish second in final points. He did it the year before, 22 years, 121 days. And here's an interesting one for you, Matt. Shortest time in your career before getting a Formula One penalty. He claimed a penalty exactly 6 seconds into his Formula One career for speeding on pit road during the very first practice session of the weekend, and he didn't even happen to race in that race. He was just getting an FP1 practice session, and that was back when he was driving for BMW Sauber.
I think that's one you definitely don't want to have when the feather in your cap. But, I mean, hey, he's got it. So,
I mean with all the other things that are there and the fact that that happened I mean, let's face it, that was what, 2007? I
Uh,
think at this point in time, he's probably laughing about it.
Probably so. Knowing him, he's probably laughing hysterically.
I would think
About that one.
so. So for Sebastian Vettel, all the best in the future. We'll miss you on the Formula One circuit, no doubt about it. But hey, all the best to you, and hope everything goes well in all your racing and your life's exploits from there.
No
So
doubt.
with that, let's talk about some other things. We talked about this last week officially. Nico Hulkenberg was set to take over for Mick Schumacher at Haas F1. Once Mick Schumacher got done with the year in that race in Abu Dhabi, he is now gone. And Nico Hulkenberg actually did take all of the practice time in the postseason practice session there at Abu Dhabi. So with that happening, it left only one seat for 2023 in Formula One with any kind of a question mark. And it was really a question mark in pencil, not pen, because we were still trying to figure out what was going to happen with that seat alongside Alex Albon. It's the one Williams was hoping going into last weekend was going to go to the American-born driver Logan Sargent. We've talked about this. Sargent needed to finish at least sixth in the final Formula 2 points to garner enough F1 super license points to ensure his entry in the series, because he was short. He had 31 after his FP1 practice session on Friday in Abu Dhabi a week ago. But he raced well enough in the season finale, started the race sixth, improved one spot at the end, finished fifth, and that was good enough for him to finish the Formula 2 season fourth in final points. He's got his super license, and now he becomes the first U.S.-born Formula One driver since Alexander Rossi did it in 2015. He's the first American-born full-time Formula One driver since Scott Speed back in 2006. Scott Speed didn't last long, though. Matt, you might remember. He made it through the 2006 season, but he was replaced at Red Bull midway through 2007 by, oh, that's right, that guy that we were just talking about, Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, that didn't last long, but we see that move that Red Bull did make did pay off for them.
It did.
With
And
Sebastian Vettel.
Well, and I'm trying to think about the best way to describe Scott Speed. I mean, Scott Speed is a guy who was one of those racers. It seems like he was fast in just about anything he got into, but he just wasn't able to do, I guess, whatever Red Bull was hoping that he was going to be able to accomplish.
Right.
Tried NASCAR for a little while when Red Bull tried NASCAR. And that really didn't seem to take either, but he seems to have found himself over there as kind of a teammate with Tanner Faust doing some World Rallycross.
It seems that, like you just said, that Rallycross has been his fit, just like you have some drivers with the Truck Series, their fit. You have the Xfinity Series, you got their some perfect fit. Those are about the best two examples. He's found his niche over there, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And he's good over there. There ain't no doubt about it. He's already a title winner. So back to Logan Sargent being that kind of rare American-born driver in Formula One. He was asked if he felt any weight on his shoulders. He said, quote, "I don't think I have any extra pressure. I have high expectations for myself as it is." And he added that he thinks that the time is now for an American-born driver and finds it merely a happy coincidence, his words, happy coincidence, that driver is he himself. What we have seen out of the Williams cars, and I know Alex Albon was able to score points. I mean, we talked about it. Of the 8 points that Williams scored this year, 6 of them were scored by Alex Albon, only 2 by my question is this. I mean, Nicholas Latifi steps out of the car and you got Logan Sargent stepping directly in. We have seen how Williams can perform. When Alex Albon wasn't able to perform, they put Nick DeVries in that car, and Nick DeVries scored points. He scored 2 points, just like we saw out of Nicholas Latifi, and it only took him 1 race to do it. So we know that there's the potential of getting that car inside the top 10. My question is this. We've seen drivers attempt to jump up from Formula 2 to Formula 1, Mick Schumacher being the most recent one. And yeah, I don't think it's all on Mick Schumacher's shoulders. But at the same time, what are the expectations at Williams for Logan Sargent, who now has a whole lot of eyes on him because he is that lone American-born driver in Formula 1?
First thing, really, I would say is you're going to figure it out real quick if it's talent or if it's equipment. You're going to figure that out in a hurry.
Right.
I don't think it's so much of a talent issue with Logan Sargent.
Okay.
You're going to find, like I said, you're going to find out really quick if it's the issue with equipment at Williams or if it's Sargent. Sargent, I would say, if he could come out and score within the first, let's say, first 6 races.
Okay.
If he scores in the low, I'm going to say in the lower half of the top 10, anywhere in the lower half, you're going to know really quick that it was a driver issue with Latifi versus if it's an issue with the equipment.
Which is what we've been basically kind of half asserting at the very least. We're not saying that the Williams equipment is great, but when we see Alex Albon going out there and consistently fighting for a top 10 position, even if he doesn't exactly get inside, whereas Nicholas Latifi's always right around the back end of the field, we tend to think it might be Nicholas Latifi.
Yeah, I mean, he was an F1 for how long and really didn't score, but
3 years.
3 years, and maybe scored enough points to count on one hand. If that much.
I think.
So I'm pretty sure.
I think we said 7 the other day.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's going to be, you're going to see real quick if it was an issue with Latifi or if it's an equipment issue. And I'm pretty sure it was not an equipment issue.
Is it one of those things where maybe Nicholas Latifi was brought up too quick? Because I double checked on it. And we look at Logan Sargent, and at the very end of the year, his birthday is December the 31st. So New Year's Eve, he will turn 22.
Right.
Does that help in some ways that he's not coming up? I mean, it didn't seem to hurt Sebastian Vettel, as we just talked about. He's the youngest driver to accomplish a whole heck of a lot. But in some cases, especially when you're talking about Formula One with the pressures of all the travel all the way around the world and everything, sometimes if you come in too fast, maybe it becomes overwhelming.
Possibly, but with the role that you have and being in a world traveling series like F1 and the spotlight that you have on you, and they could try to argue that you're one of the best 22 drivers in the world, which some of them I could really put a question mark beside that on that.
Sure.
But I could see where it could be, but with the role that you have being in that level of a series worldwide, you have to shut that off.
Right.
When you sit down, you cinch the 5-point harness, the car gets fired up, you have to shut that off and go, as our favorite saying goes, you have to go do your job.
Yep. And unfortunately for Nicholas Latifi, he wasn't up to that task.
No.
So we'll find out whether Logan Sargent is, and we'll find out whether Nico Hülkenberg has lost anything. As noted, after the race last weekend, they did a postseason tire test. It was really more for Pirelli than anything else because it was with the 2022 spec cars. And Nico Hülkenberg was put into the action as he participated solely. Well, I take that back. I say solely. Pietro Fittipaldi got a few laps, but Nico Hülkenberg did the vast majority of the laps in the Haas F1. And Hülkenberg, again, last time he was full-time in Formula One was 2019. Back then it was Renault, now Alpine. He's been the reserve driver for Aston Martin in the couple of years since, and he's gotten 5 races in due to COVID. But 5 races over the course of a couple of years is not really what anyone would call enough to break the rust off. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a better way of putting that. So
that's about the only way you can put it. Not keeping the rust knocked off. Yeah.
I mean, 5 races over 2 years. And I get it. He's had a lot of time in simulators. He's had some practice session time, but 5 races? What can we expect?
Well, because you have different characteristics of every single track that they go on. It's not a matter of keeping rust off. With the F1, I would say, is keeping your skill honed.
Okay.
It's probably going to say, what does he mean by that? Keeping the rust knocked off is, keeping your timing down.
Right.
My opinion, keeping your timing down, whether it be your throttle response timing, your hand-eye coordination, hitting your marks in the corners, etc. With keeping his skill honed, you really can't do that, perfect that in a simulator. You have to do it in real time, because what a simulator gives you is not what you're going to feel exactly in the car.
Yeah,
because
I mean, even as good as simulators are now.
Right. You don't even as good as they are, you don't feel that throttle response when you try to lay an F1 sense down 950 to 1,000 horsepower to the ground.
Yeah.
It feels a whole lot different with a throttle pedal under your foot versus a computer pedal under your foot.
Okay.
If you follow what I'm
Uh,
saying.
I do. And Hulkenberg was actually kind of subdued, if you will. He seemed a little bit less cocky and self-assured about the whole thing when he told media that it wasn't exactly a no-brainer, and that was his words, no-brainer, for Haas to bring him in for 2023. He did add, quote, "It feels good. I'm happy. I'm glad that I managed to achieve it. Not a no-brainer for after 3 years out that I can come back. I think only big names and world champions have achieved that in the past, so happy and very proud about it. After 3 years out, it's not like I had 20 offers on the table. I've watched Haas, actually talked and negotiated in the years and years back with Gunther and Gene, so there was already some connection there." But he then noted when things began to change, quote, "It was difficult to imagine coming back at the beginning of this year. I think around April, May time, I didn't think about it too much, but it was probably less than likely then. And then summer came about and things changed in a way and evolved, obviously, in a positive direction for me, which, of course, I'm very happy about." He continued talking about it and saying, quote, "Obviously, it all starts with a conversation." That was around summertime. I was chasing down and talking to Gunther to see if there was a possibility, if there is an opportunity. And with time, as we got closer to the end of the season, it got more intense. And I think at the end of the day, I wanted to come back to racing. I wanted to be in a driving seat again. They wanted to have a change in the team, so our interests matched. And here we are. Obviously, you have the people who are complaining about the fact that they let go of Mick Schumacher maybe too early. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I understand that we're about to come up on a break, so we may end up getting back into this on the other side of it. But when you stop and you think about what Haas F1 is trying to do, they were very much in Ferrari's back pocket by bringing Mick Schumacher on, which was vastly different from the way that they started off their team. They started it off with two veterans, and Romain Grosjean and Esteban Gutierrez. Esteban Gutierrez didn't work out, so after 1 year, they replaced him with Magnussen. When they tried to go the young driver route, worked with the Ferrari driving academy, brought in Mick Schumacher, and I want to say, not that it was the Ferrari driving academy situation, he wasn't a driver for them, but I want to say that probably they had talked to the people in the Ferrari driving academy, and that's how they ended up bringing in Dmitry Mazepin. They realized that that really wasn't going to work. You know, Dmitry Mazepin rarely, if ever, even on a year when Haas F1 was punting on the year because they didn't have a car that was anywhere near what they were looking for to be competitive, Mick Schumacher was constantly outperforming Dmitry Mazepin. This is them, in my mind, once again, trying to, even though they have that technical partnership with Ferrari, trying to step out and be their own team.
Yeah, they're trying, but they're stumbling a little bit too much.
Right.
By getting a little bit too far ahead of themselves, if you ask me.
Okay.
They should have, instead of pulling Schumacher up like they did, not saying that he didn't deserve it, give him a little time to hone his craft, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Let him stay in F2, but have him as the reserve driver for Haas, reserve driver for Ferrari.
Sure.
Alfa Romeo.
Maybe even Alfa Romeo, yeah,
Alfa
since
Romeo,
they're all
yeah.
three kind of connected.
Yeah, have him as that Ferrari. Let him get that seat time at FP1s throughout the year. Do more simulation time. It tied in with those FP1 practices. And then pull him up to let him get that seat time first instead of going and say, hey, here you go. Good luck. Hope you survive.
Yeah. And that's what they did. I mean, they kind of threw him to the wolves, let's face it. So, all right. So we've kind of got our ideas on this, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, obviously. Does he believe Haas F1 can improve next year? Do we think Haas F1 can improve next year with the two veterans of Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg? We'll talk about it next. You're listening to CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Steve West, along with Matt Nicholson. Producer John is in the background. He is at Command Central, so to speak. As you can tell, we're not in our regular studios. If you're just now joining us, there is a, well, let's face it, it's the last major college football weekend of the year, and that means the rivalry games are on. And Georgia versus Georgia Tech is what we're talking about from our flagship station. And, yeah, they've got a really long pregame show. 4 hours.
Longer than normal.
Yeah, so we got preempted. So we're going to do this all from home, which kind of works for Thanksgiving weekend, actually. Kind of happy about it. As you can tell, I'm at home. I got the collection over here behind me. Matt, you are up in North Carolina, correct?
Yeah, and if you hear the overflight of flights coming in from Charlotte Douglas International, it's the location is kind of at the end of where the runway is going to the south.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've had a couple of buzzed a few times.
That's okay. We can deal with it. We're just having a good time. And we're talking Formula One. We're talking Nico Hülkenberg as well. And again, he seems contrite. He seems appreciative about where he is now. The fact that he's had a couple of years out and now he's back in Formula One. He had said he was kind of not even sure that it was even going to happen. But as the year went on, he realized that it was going to actually come together. So the question is now he and Kevin Magnussen, can they bring Haas F1 back to where Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas won it, which is back to fighting for 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th in points as opposed to 8th in points like they were this year? Well, Hülkenberg says that he thinks so. He said, quote, I think last year and in 2021, it was tough years for Haas. They've been much stronger results this year for 2022. But I still see potential that we can do better. That is obviously a job for me and Kevin Magnussen and for the whole team to drive this team forward. Naturally, you always want to do better. That's the previous year, of course. Then the previous year, of course, the journey starts together here. You build the team together from here. Kevin Magnussen, I certainly don't have a problem with. And from what Nico Hülkenberg has done in the past, and we talked about him a little bit last week, there was a period of time there, and I want to say it was from about 2010 to about 2017, where he never finished outside of the top 10 in final driver standings.
Right.
But 2018 and 2019, he kind of fell off and he was outside the top 10 both of those years. He's now 35 years old. This is, it's a fairly interesting choice for Haas F1 because, I mean, how much longer is Nico Hülkenberg going to be in the sport?
I would say he's got at least 5 more years, at least.
Yeah, but are all of those at Haas F1?
True. That would literally you was thinking what I was thinking there. But could they all be at Haas? Could they be somewhere down the road, a new team coming in like Audi, or even Andretti if they get in a couple of years? Who knows? But overall, from a driving times perspective, period, I'd say he's got it at least until he turns 40.
And I've kind of said this, but I'm certainly going to defer to you as the driver on this. What Nico Hülkenberg to me brings in what Mick Schumacher couldn't is the fact that we've seen Nico Hülkenberg drive in cars that obviously are very, very good. I mean, even though he's never won a race and he actually has never scored on a podium, you have to be able to consistently score points throughout the course of a year if you're going to finish top 10 in the final driver standings.
Sure.
And do it 6-7 years in a row. So he's driven better cars than what the Haas F1 has right now. Knowing what he has driven in the past and knowing what has worked in the past, yeah, a lot of things have changed. So can he actually bring something to Haas F1 here that tells them, hey, listen, maybe we ought to do this or that to the car? Or has things changed too much to where those things that he learned from the past cars that worked, that doesn't really translate?
He can, for sure. It's just a matter of whether it works or not for Haas, I guess you could say, because we all know Gunther Steiner is a little bit hard-headed.
No, really?
A little bit. He can do that because he's got more years under his belt than Kevin Magnussen does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even more than Kevin, much less Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, and Haas has really never had that double-sided veteran presence. It's always been one-sided veteran, one-sided rookie, or both-sided rookie, which we saw where that went.
Yeah.
Nowhere.
I mean, even
So
when they had Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen was still that young guy at that time.
true, he was, but it's just the old saying, time will tell.
Yeah.
You'll know right off the bat.
Yeah, we should know pretty quick. I mean, Haas F1 seems to think that they have a good base from what they've worked on and built throughout the course of 2022 to launch them into 2023. They've
Right.
got a year under their belts with the new, and again, it's not the major change that we're going to expect here after 2025 when we go into 2026. That's going to be a major change. It's just they did a lot of changes in the rules, which is why they punted on 2021. They were making the cars, building the cars for this year for those rule changes. They've got a year under their belts now. And again, even Mick Schumacher was able to score points in the 2022 car, just not enough for them to say, hey, listen, come on back.
Sure.
So I think they got a good base. And with two veteran drivers with two really good heads on their shoulders, if they can work together, which they seem to think they can put their past indiscretions behind them, who knows what Haas F1 might be able to do.
I mean, who knows? You may be able to see them come out and run that fourth place effort like they had early on in their infant days of their team.
Yeah, and you want to talk about ticking off everybody in Formula One again because, oh my God, what has Haas F1 got?
Yeah, no joke.
You know what? I look forward to those days, truth be told.
Yeah.
Over to Red Bull, apparently the in-house disagreement over Daniel Ricciardo came to an end. Last week we talked about it. There was one side that was saying he's the official reserve driver for 2023. And then all of a sudden there were a couple of other people in the front offices saying, no, nothing's been signed. Well, apparently the in-house disagreement has come to an end. And yes, Daniel Ricciardo officially is the 2023 Red Bull reserve driver. And as we talked about last week, multiple-time winner in Formula One, hoping to return to Formula One full-time for 2024. Probably not at Red Bull. Team principal Christian Horner said this, quote, no, Daniel's contract is very specific. We have a contract with Sergio Perez for the next 2 years. The partnership of Max and Checo, which, again, if you're new, that's Sergio Perez's nickname, Checo, has been phenomenal for us. So Ricciardo is simply the best option for a reserve driver if Max Verstappen or Perez has to set out a race, because we know this, two-time defending champion, you're not getting rid of Max Verstappen anytime soon. They seem pretty happy with what Sergio Perez is doing. This is the return, though, into the Red Bull team for Daniel Ricciardo. The question is, I noticed he said that he's not going to be back with Red Bull. Could he return to AlphaTauri?
That's option number one, if you ask me, because you got with Nick DeVries there now, along with Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, and Yuki Tsunoda, with all due respect, hasn't really shown a whole lot.
He's had small flashes.
Yeah,
very small flashes.
Right.
So if those flashes fade, you've got Ricciardo sitting there in the wings, and that's logical replacement number one.
Yep.
If they were not to use that, they would be complete total morons, if you ask me.
So, Nick DeVries is the guy that they went after real hard. So I don't think Nick DeVries is going to go anywhere anytime real too soon. I think they're going to give him a couple of years. We've seen, again, with Yuki Tsunoda, he's got, some time under his belt now. Right. This is going to be the year. 2023 is going to be the year. He's going to have to prove himself. If he can't prove himself, he might just be on a short enough leash to where they'll yank him out of that car.
We've seen him do it before.
Absolutely. Red Bull doesn't seem to have a lot of patience when it comes to drivers in the cars. If you're not performing quick, they're going to find somebody who they think is going to perform, and they'll make that change in a hurry.
Well, I mean, when you've got somebody like a Christian Horner that knows what equipment they all have, not across one car or two cars, but all four cars.
Sure.
That's kind of a no-brainer. Hey, you got the stuff. When you set the seat, you got no reason to can't get it done.
Yep, I agree. Over to McLaren, their sponsorship deal with Gulf Oil comes to an end again. It was revived in 2020, but it's a partnership that dates all the way back to 1968. When they came back in 2020 for the British Grand Prix, the F1 cars featured that noted blue and orange Gulf Oil colors, and the pairing has been a success for them. But after 2 years, both of the sides, according to McLaren, mutually agreed not to extend the deal. So that means some sponsorship money goes away from McLaren. But considering what McLaren's been doing, I don't think they're hurting financially.
No, the last thing McLaren is hurting financially
Yeah,
with how they're
but
expanding in motorsports overall.
it's kind of sad though. I got to admit, I really liked that look because that blue and orange, it goes back. I mean, if you saw if you've seen the movies, like Ford versus Ferrari or whatever, we've looked at all of these different looks, and it's just such a really, really good look. And truth be told, I'm a little sad that the Gulf Oil sponsorship is going away, and it'll be interesting
Right.
to see whether that gets revived once again.
Right.
Meantime, Formula One continues to build upon their breaking into the United States market and their increased popularity in the United States. Now, a lot of that, as we have said on numerous occasions, is somewhat attributed to the Netflix series Drive to Survive, but ESPN's a part of it, and we'll get into that as well. First things first, they continue to try and build on it, and their latest venture is partnering with the American-based retailer PacSun. It's a multi-year deal going to provide Formula One-related men's, women's, and children's clothing. At the beginning, it's really actually only going to be about 6 pieces, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies being the centerpieces, and I guess over the course of time that they want to expand it out. The collection is set to be available at all PacSun stores and PacSun.com starting on December the 12th. Now, is this pre-order or are they going to be ready in time for Christmas? I don't know. That's going to be up to you. But in having looked at the Formula One store, maybe the PacSun material might be a little more, and I say this hopefully, affordable.
Yeah, because other than that, you're going to see your general $50 t-shirts, $100 hoodies, and what else? Maybe a $40 or $50 hat as well. Because that's
Yeah.
F1 merchandise is beyond me crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen before in my life.
I wouldn't mind getting a couple of Haas F1 things, but not at the price that they're asking for. That's just it's too much. But then, like we talked about when it came to the ABC ESPN coverage over the last few years, the final numbers for the 2022 Formula One season have been released by ABC ESPN Sports. Again, they're the American television rights holders for the series. They get the entire season, but it just depends on their scheduling as to what network it shows up on. 2022 marked the first season averaging, keep this in mind, averaging over the course of the entire season at least 1 million viewers per race. Bested the previous record that was set only last year, covering ABC, which aired select races, ESPN and ESPN2. They report averaging 1.21 million people watching. That's 28% jump over 2021's numbers. And remember, we were all kind of stuck in the house in 2021 because of that ridiculous, stupid COVID lockdown. But maybe even more importantly, and we can dig into this on the other side here as we're coming up on a break, a 34% increase in female viewership, women making up now about 28% of the overall audience in 2022. Also of interest, the all-important 18 to 49 age demographic. This is what TV and radio stations all really are looking for, is to be in that or the 18 to 54 demographic, because these are the key money makers in our age range here. That demographic saw an overall 29% increase in viewers. And if you break it down even further, viewership from 12 to 17-year-olds up 49%, 18 to 34-year-olds up 43%, 25 to 34-year-olds viewership over 46% over 2021. And all of this shows that this could end up becoming an enduring popularity of the sport, because they're not only working to get, they're working to keep younger viewers. And this is something that every series is working on. NHRA is doing it actually quite well. NASCAR needs to work on it a little bit, and I think Indycar needs to work on it a little bit as well, in the fact that they tend to be a little bit higher up on the age range spectrum. And again, we'll get into this again a little bit more on the other side, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of specific races as well, because the Miami Grand Prix showed some really, really good numbers. You're listening to CRN, Hour 1 down, Hour 2 coming up right after this.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, here's kind of the fun part about this. If you missed hour 1, you missed a lot. We have recapped the fact that we are in the end of the year. Formula One race officially done. We talked about the final standings. We talked about Sebastian Vettel. We talked about Haas F1 as well. Now we're talking a little bit of viewership. But again, for those of you just now joining us, don't forget, we come on 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. So make sure that you join us in hour number 1. And here's the other side. We're not in our home offices as a general rule. We are all in different locations. I'm at my home. You've got Matt up at your mom's place, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay. And John is at his home as well because, well, the flagship station has decided that college football is more important than us. Sorry, I'm not really trying to throw them under the bus that bad. I mean, it's been a great home for us, and we appreciate them certainly for everything that they've been able to do for us. And we hope that that partnership lasts a long time. So, yeah, Thanksgiving weekend, and things are a little bit different, but we're happy to be here and loving being on CRN Live on YouTube. Again, if you are checking us out and you have friends out there who you think would love the show, make sure you let them know about us because, hey, you can subscribe and they can subscribe and it's free. It doesn't cost anything to do that. And the other cool thing about it is we're not necessarily limited to the 2-hour time limit. So if we happen to go over, that's something we can do. That's just,
right.
We have that freedom. But we've been talking about the viewership situation here. We were talking about how everything really is up. Overall numbers up 28% over last year, averaged over the course of the year, ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2 on Formula One, 1.21 million people watching. And the biggest viewership of the number of the year came when they televised the inaugural Miami Grand Prix on ABC. And that brought in 2.583 million people. That's the most watched Formula One race ever in the United States, one of 12 races that set viewership records for that specific race, whether it was ESPN, ABC, or ESPN2. 17 of this year's 21 races saw over 1 million people watching. The numbers did drop a little bit after Verstappen and Red Bull locked up the season titles, but ABC, ESPN, they seem very, very happy. They do have the rights for Formula One through the 2025 season. That was just extended. And if this keeps up, I don't see them getting rid of this anytime too soon. They seem very, very happy with their partnership. And truth be told, they don't really do a whole lot. Sky Sports is really what does all the legwork. ABC or ESPN or ESPN2 is basically just grabbing the Sky Sports coverage from over in Britain, and they're just airing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, ESPN is just the man in the middle here. Sky Sports is doing all the legwork, and it's like you said, it's paying off in droves for them.
It is. My question is this, and there was some talk about this, and we haven't heard anything since, but there was some talk that ESPN, the ABC Sports, along with ESPN, might be interested in bringing Daniel Ricciardo on and doing some sort of manning telecast that they've been doing with Monday Night Football, which is where you had Monday Night Football on ESPN, and you put this Peyton Manning, Eli Manning telecast where the game was in one picture, and then Peyton and Eli on smaller side screens. And sometimes they were interviewing somebody else. Sometimes they were just talking about the game or talking about whatever. And they were talking about having Daniel Ricciardo and maybe, I don't know, maybe Nicole Briscoe, who's been the in-studio host for ESPN and ABC. Maybe she's part of it. And they're just kind of talking throughout the telecast. My thing is, I could see that working if the race is on ABC or is on ESPN, because then you could take, obviously, if it's on ABC, you could put it on ESPN, this Manning telecast or Ricciardo telecast, if you want to put it that way. Right. If it's on ESPN, you could put this Ricciardo telecast on ESPN2. Where do you put it if the race is on ESPN2 itself? ESPN News?
Yeah, that would be the next best thing, because I don't think you could put F1 on ESPNU.
I don't think that they would appreciate it, but here's the thing. I mean, after ESPN and ESPN2, it's not a guarantee that your cable system is going to cover ESPNU or ESPN News or, truth be told, the SEC network or the Big Ten network or the ACC network or whatever it is. Once you get past ESPN2, it's less certain that you're going to be able to get this. So I'm going to be interested in finding out how they do it. And if it's possible that they might decide to do it only via ESPN Plus. I don't know. And if they decide to do it that way, I think it's a waste of money, truth be told, because I don't know how many people, truth be told, have ESPN Plus. I'm one, but that's another story entirely. Let's turn our attention over to NASCAR real quick, talk about the Cup Series and the group that we're a part of, the National Motorsports Press Association. They put out the most popular driver voting. It is now open at NASCAR.com, and they do this every once in a while up to just before it is actually revealed who the people vote the most popular driver as. The NMPA releases an early top 10, and they put it out in alphabetical order, so that's how we're going to put it out. So they didn't say, in other words, who is your top vote getter right now. But right now, who we're looking at, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch is an interesting one, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, and Martin Truex Jr. Joey Logano is the title winner, but Joey Logano is one of those guys. We have seen his popularity come up over the years. I still don't think that he's going to be on a level of Chase Elliott. If you're asking me, and I'll certainly defer to you on this, but if you're asking me, it's a 2-horse race. It's Chase Elliott, who is the obvious choice, and it's Ross Chastain.
I fully concur. I concur. It's real. It's Elliott and Chastain all day long. Now, one that I'm kind of a little bit surprised that he's not on there.
Okay.
I'm surprised that they don't have Bubba on there.
Little surprised by that as well, but all things being equal, he's had an up and down year. Granted, he had a year where he quote unquote legitimately won a race, but he's also had a year where he got up under the skin of a few people as well. So
yeah, he has more downs than ups, if you ask me.
Yeah, and that's something he's going to have to work on.
Right.
Our esteemed cohort behind the scenes is saying that Chase Elliott's going to walk away with it once again. I kind of think he might be right, but I'd love to see Ross Chastain with an upset.
Yeah.
Front Row Motorsports has announced they got themselves a new crew chief for the number 34 of Michael McDowell. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. They lost that guy. They lost their previous crew chief. So they're going to bring in Travis Peterson. He moves over from Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing to head the team. He's been the lead race engineer for RFK over the last 5 years and has worked with drivers such as Chris Buescher, Ryan Newman, Matt Kenseth, and, of course, Brad Keselowski. And before that, worked at Hendrick Motorsports and Junior Motorsports. That brings us to their other car because apparently they're going to need a new crew chief over there on the 38 because they kicked Seth Barber upstairs. He takes over the role of technical director for Front Row. He will oversee all the track engineering and car preparation for the Cup Series organization, both cars. So the 34 has a new crew chief. The 38 will have a new crew chief. That announcement's set to come at a later date. Let's get back to Travis Peterson over here. What, if anything, does he bring to the 34 and Michael McDowell that Michael may have been missing before?
Nothing. Here's why. Because on the last couple of years, consistently, Front Row has outran RFK.
Right.
On a consistent basis. With it being the 34 consistently outrunning the 6 and 17 on any given weekend.
Yeah.
Even though RFK picked it up at the end of the year.
They did.
They didn't pick it up in droves, but they picked it up a little bit. And
so
they got the win at Bristol.
I guess the question becomes, what do they see out of Travis Peterson that made them say that's our guy?
I think this is more of a scenario of like when Hendrick will pull up or promote a crew chief from Junior Motorsports up to Hendrick Motorsports.
Mm-hmm.
See Greg Ives when he got pulled up. See, let's see who else. Rudy Fugle didn't come up because he came over from KBM. They pulled, well, the main one being Greg Ives.
Yeah.
Kind of a scenario like that.
Okay.
It's probably more of a sense of, hey, we're going to do a little bit of a swap here, swap there, whatever. But as the saying goes, time will tell.
I got you. Seth
Good.
Barber going up into technical director mode. What does that do for the organization as a whole?
I'm not sure if it does very much.
Okay.
Now, if they had him move if Blake Harris had got moved over for technical director because the 34 car actually came to life this year
It did.
with Blake Harris, hence that's what got him the job with the 48 car
Yeah.
this year, this next season. I would say they got their odds would be better with Blake Harris if he could have got moved to technical director, but money talks.
I gotcha. And then there's this, and I like this. And there's been some talk about this ever since the SRX season ended last year. Elio Castroneves, is he ready to run a Cup Series race? Well, Adam Stern in the Sports Business Journal, a guy who we trust in his reporting, says that it might actually start to come together here real soon for a possible run at the Daytona 500. Stern reports that the two possibilities are the Trackhouse Racing Project 91 car and the Money Team's number 50 as two viable options for the four-time Indy 500 winner. Should he choose to make an attempt at the Cup Series, at this time, Stern reports he is working, Castroneves is, with SRX and Series CEO Don Hawk to run several races in SRX for 2023, if not the entire season as well. Part of that could be a situation where now that he's back full-time in IndyCar, he may not be able to run all those races. So he wants to run SRX. Don Hawk, I think, would love to have him back in the SRX series, as many races as he can run out of the 6. But let's talk about this right now. I mean, Project 91, we know what Trackhouse Racing can do. We've seen that, both the 1 and the 99 winning last year. Sure. No problem there. Question becomes, is Elio Castroneves up for that ride? Are they ready to break out the Project 91 car for the Daytona 500? So we'll start there. I'll worry about the other team in a minute.
If I was in Helio's shoes, it's Project 91 car or bust.
Okay, because I mean, we talk about it. The Money Team, the number 50, the backing is there. I mean, this is Floyd Mayweather's team. He can pull money from anywhere. I mean, he's got his own
pocket.
He's also got a lot of friends who are willing to help him with this car. This car has no problem with financial backing.
Sure.
Thing about it is this car has yet to prove that it is anything more than an also-ran.
I agree with you with that because, if I'm Elio and I'm going to make my foray into stock car racing and I'm going to make my season opener at the biggest race at NASCAR's Indy 500.
Sure.
I'm going to put myself in the best possible position in the fastest car.
Yeah.
Because if you get reverted back to, and you're at Mayweather's team, the Money Team, you're running a legitimate risk of not even making the show.
Unfortunately for him, that's very true. And we know that being the Daytona 500, you're going to have drivers that are going to be going home.
Exactly.
Because there's going to be 40, there could be as many as 45, 46 teams, cars trying to get into this race.
Yeah, low end, I'm going to say 40. But I'm with you. I could see legitimately, I'm going to say between 43 and 46.
Okay.
Try to qualify.
So that means that the dual races become very important. And what you were talking about, what we've seen out of that 50 car, the Money Team's car, it doesn't tell me that they're good enough to get from the dual races into the 500.
Yeah, and the only experience that Helio's got in a full body car in drafting practice is back from, remember this, kids? IROC?
That was a while ago.
I remember watching him at IROC race at Talladega.
I do.
And he comes through the gate and they interview him over the trackside, and this was before you took over. He says, Elio, what's your first thought when you roll through the tunnel? I'm not going to repeat what he said. Holy, this place is huge.
And it is.
So, reverting back to what the protocols are, which we know sometimes that NASCAR doesn't follow protocol to be able to run a super speedway race anymore.
Sure. Right.
He would have to run ARCA race to get approval. ARCA race is on Saturday before Sunday.
Now, and I'll ask this question, and I ask this legitimately, because I get where you get certain drivers, and I remember this very well. The first race I ever covered, I covered for a radio station, and I covered the ARCA Menard Series race, what is now the ARCA Menard Series race. And it was the race that Joey Logano ran and almost won. And I actually had the chance to interview him after the fact and talked to him about how he felt about being inside the car. This was a guy who, as you noted, was trying to get the approval, trying to get that clearance to run a super speedway race. With Elio Castroneves being the veteran driver that he is in IndyCar, top level IndyCar license, 4 Indy 500 wins, as we've talked about, numerous race wins there. Could NASCAR conceivably, I'm not saying that they will, could NASCAR, though, conceivably give him a pass and say, yeah, you can go ahead and run the super speedway because you have a license in this other top level series?
They could.
Will they, becomes the question.
That's the question. And I'm reverting back to 2006 when they made Juan Montoya run Talladega in an ARCA car to get approval to run 2007 for the Daytona 500. I'm reverting back to that. So if they did it to him, they had no choice but to do it to Elio.
Probably right. We'll find out as we get closer to 2023, and we're going to talk about Fox as well, because they've set their the crew up in the tower. We'll talk about it when we come back. You're listening to CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hour number 2 rolling on, talking a little bit about the NASCAR Cup Series here, and Fox has already let it kind of be known, and I say kind of because this is really more Adam Stern than everybody else reporting this, but you got to realize Fox Sports was really nothing if you go back 30 years ago.
Right.
And then in the mid-90s, they jumps up and they surprised everybody by grabbing the National Football League. And then they got NASCAR for 2001, and they have been innovators in the sporting world. A lot of the other networks have followed them on permanent scoreboards or how they ran the entire race lineup as far as how they were running at that particular time.
Right.
And for NASCAR, they followed what was a tried and true pattern. We saw 3-man booths at ESPN and even CBS when they did the very first live flag-to-flag coverage of the Daytona 500. 3-man booth has been pretty typical when it comes to NASCAR. At first, for Fox, it was Mike Joy, along with the just-retired Darrell Waltrip and the just-retired crew chief Larry McReynolds. And then they put Larry McReynolds over by the car, the Fox Sports car, and they put Jeff Gordon, who had just retired, up into the booth. Well, then DW retired, Clint Boyer was brought in, and then Jeff Gordon retired from the broadcasting side to go back to Hendrick Motorsports as their vice president. And for this past season that just ended, it was Mike Joy, Clint Boyer, and a revolving door of different commentators. Well, according to Adam Stern out of Sports Business Journal, he expects that to continue in 2023. Reported, quote, Fox Sports expected to continue to rotate its third booth position in 2023 versus having a full-time analyst join Mike Joy and Clint Boyer. And then he added this. Fox's reasoning is unclear, but this would give the chance to possibly bring in Kevin Harvick in 2024 if he retires after 2023. Now you say, wait a minute, what's the likelihood of that? Well, don't forget, Kevin Harvick said during this season, he likely is not going to renew his contract with Stewart-Haas Racing after the 2023 season when the current contract runs out. But there's that question. Are we talking about retiring from Cup Series driving? Is he thinking about moving to another team and continuing his Cup driving career? Harvick's keeping things pretty close to the vest here. He hasn't said yet what his plans are after the 2023 season. And what we do know is this. Tony Stewart wants to keep his friend, and Gene Haas has already said he wants to try and sit down and keep the door open for a possible contract extension with Harvick. Harvick's 44, about to be 45. That's about when Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. all retired. What's Kevin Harvick thinking?
I think it's more of getting out of the seat. Here's why I think it's that. Because his son Keelan, his racing career is starting to blossom quite well, I guess you could say. Because, you know, when you got your son running in kart races over in Italy and Europe and Great Britain, and performing admirably well,
he is.
I think he's looking at the lines of, hey, Keelan's career is about to take off.
I need to free myself up.
Yeah, free myself up a little bit. I mean, he's quite honestly, and this is not taken away from him in no shape, form, or fashion whatsoever.
Yeah.
Harvick doesn't really have much left to prove.
True. He's got the 2014 title. He can still win. We saw him win 2 straight races. But the truth of the matter is also Stewart-Haas Racing has some soul searching to do because this is not the team that they once were. When Tony Stewart won the title, when Kevin Harvick won his title, 2011, 2014, this was a team that was winning races consistently. And we're talking multiple races a year. We're not really seeing that much anymore.
Yeah, they lack of a better term, they hiccuped last year pretty bad. Whether it was from heartburn or indigestion, don't know. Time will tell. But even though we did see Harvick win a couple of races, Briscoe won his one.
Yeah. We saw flashes of brilliance from Eric Almirola and Cole Custer.
Flashes for sure. But I think the 41 car is going to wake up next year.
It has to.
Yeah, it has no choice to.
Yep. And the 10 car?
10 car, I think it's going to wake up a little bit more. It was kind of groggy-eyed this year, if you ask me.
Yeah. And part of that may have been still trying to adjust to the Gen 7 car.
True.
Maybe.
Very well could have been. But I think there's going to be a very respectable rebound year next year for SHR.
Okay. And I'm saying this, if you look behind me right here, the bottom part of these cases right here, you see a whole bunch of Tony Stewart cars. I've said this before on the air, but again, if you're fairly new or if you are new, I've been a Tony Stewart fan since his rookie year of 1999. And I've been following Tony Stewart and therefore Stewart-Haas Racing the whole time. I'm saying this as a media personnel. I'm saying I'm taking my fan hat off and I'm putting my journalist hat on when I say this. Stewart-Haas Racing's at a crossroads, and they need to figure out where they are going to go from here. Because, Tony Stewart got real upset with NASCAR towards the tail end of the year for the penalties that they levied against Harvick, the penalty that they leveled against Cole Custer. And he was kind of making some noise like he was thinking about maybe trying to get out. Because, again, this man has a racing empire that includes his own Tony Stewart Racing, Superstar Racing Experience, couple of different tracks that he owns. He owns outright one dirt racing series, and I think he has a co-interest in another, or does he own two outright?
He owns one outright, the All-Star Circuit Champions.
And he has a co-interest in the other, in the second one, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I mean, his racing empire is huge, and he just started the NHRA drag racing team, the Top Fuel and Funny cars. It's not like he's hurting. If he doesn't want to do something, he's not going to do it. He's going to get out.
Right.
And that led us to some question as to whether Stewart-Haas Racing could become Harvick-Haas or Haas-Harvick Racing. I don't know. I'm not going to go that far.
Right.
What we know is that Kevin Harvick Incorporated, KHI, which used to be a race team, has now become more of it's more of an agency than anything else, representing other drivers and other sports figures. So I don't know whether he would revive the race team aspect of that or not.
I'm not really sure, but there is one little bullet point I want to make on this here.
Sure.
Talk about the KHI part.
Right.
KHI has developed and is developing a very, very tight shared interest with another considerably large name. Well, a large name that is getting larger by the day in Cup. Trackhouse.
Right.
Because on Keelan's Legends car that he's been driving, there's an awfully large Trackhouse logo on the side of it.
Interesting to note.
They've kind of got a little bit of a shared interest on things here to where if Kevin does step away from SHR, does he merge in with Trackhouse? Is his swan song with Trackhouse? Is his mindset in the same mindset as Kyle Busch? Hey, I want to make it to where when my son turns X age, which will be 16,
sure,
line up with him, run one race with him, or run a couple races with him, and say, "I'm done."
Sure,
could happen. Back. And you can't fault Kyle for that, because if I was in Kyle's shoes, heck yeah, I'd want to line up and run a race against my son.
Oh,
I'd
sure,
love to.
Yeah. And I'm sure Kevin would say the exact same thing with Keelan.
I'm positive Kevin would say the same thing with Keelan, because Keelan is, I think he's
he's got to be closing in on 10 if he's not 10.
10 or 11, I think, want to say somewhere around in there.
Yeah. So it's just a couple more years, really.
Yeah. It's
if he could last it out, it might be the interesting way of doing it. And we mentioned this before. Trackhouse Racing is talking about wanting to expand out, just like 2311 is. Both of those teams have seen some success as 2-car operations. They would like to expand out because they understand 3-car and 4-car operations are really, with all due respect to Stewart-Haas Racing in this last year, the 3 and the 4-car teams are really where the success is coming.
Sure.
Let's see what else we can get into. By the way, speaking of Trackhouse, congratulations out to Trackhouse Racing driver Daniel Suarez. He proposed to his longtime girlfriend Julia PK just yesterday. She accepted, so that brings 2 more racing families together. Julia PK is the daughter of Nelson PK. They have not set a wedding date as of yet. Well, just a bit ago, we noted the most popular driver voting is open in the Cup Series. The NMPA also announced the top 10 vote getters so far in alphabetical order in the Xfinity Series. They are as follows: Justin Allgaier, AJ Allmendinger, Josh Berry, Jeremy Clements, Sheldon Creed, Ty Gibbs, Noah Gragson, Austin Hill, Brandon Jones, and Sam Mayer. The defending title winner, if I remember correctly, is Justin Allgaier.
Correct.
AJ Allmendinger is certainly a name that sticks out here to me. I would have said earlier on in the year, say, I don't know, before Martinsville, Ty Gibbs might have had a chance at it. I don't think he's got that chance anymore.
Personally, I think it's down to Allmendinger and Gragson.
Okay, so you're eliminating Allgaier, period.
Yep, I think it's Allgaier. It's a Allmendinger and Gragson, with Allgaier in not a distant third, but a close third.
Okay. We'll have to see exactly how that all comes together. Our producer, John Myers, says that Allgaier repeats. We'll find out. You might be right. Late in the 2022 season, Hendrick Motorsports reported they were ready to get back into Xfinity competition, but only on a part-time basis. They chose to put out a number 17 Chevrolet Camaro in honor of Ricky Hendrick, the late Ricky Hendrick. And they put it out there for 4 races. They used their Cup drivers to pilot. Hendrick Motorsports has announced they're going to do the exact same thing coming up in 2023 Xfinity events as well, just select events. Rick Hendrick said in the press conference talking about it, quote, some of it, but not a lot of it, because I'm involved in junior motorsports, and that's our focus in Xfinity. But we'd like to run some road courses, and some of our guys want to run some of the ovals. We won't be competing full-time at all, just a handful of races. It's been a lot of fun to watch and bring those colors back. That's kind of Ricky's number and colors. It's really something that I've enjoyed. And we'll do a few more of those. He said road courses, but here's the thing. When it comes to ovals, how hard is it for Rick Hendrick not to break that 17 out and put it in the season opener at Daytona?
Tough.
I would think.
I would say tough, because you've got a fairly stout lineup of drivers that could easily, hands down, take an Xfinity race by the ears and just say, oh, come here, you're mine.
Sure.
And here's Daytona Talladega.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing. Does he stick just with his own Hendrick Motorsports guys, or does he kind of expand it out to some of the other Chevrolet teams that are, say, Hendrick affiliated?
That's going to put you in the mix with really only Trackhouse, because Trackhouse has got the engine affiliation with Hendrick, even though I'm still surprised Chevrolet hasn't fully blanketed their engine program into one yet.
Yeah, kind of like Toyota and Ford have.
Yeah. But I could see Daniel Suarez running one.
Okay.
I could see Ross Chastain running one, maybe two. Who knows? Seriously, who knows?
Yeah. Time will tell.
Yeah.
As for the aforementioned junior motorsports themselves, driver Josh Berry, who will wheel, I should say, the number 8 in 2023, announced on a recent edition of Dirty Mo Live, which is Dirty Mo is a subsidiary company of one of his bosses, Dale Earnhardt Jr., said that he's going to have a new spotter in 2023. Veteran spotter TJ Majors will be looking out for him in the upcoming season. Major has spotted for all 3 of NASCAR's top series, has spotted for Brad Keselowski, but for 2022, primarily in the Xfinity series where he was the spotter for Brandon-Built Motorsports. So bringing in TJ Majors for Josh Berry, and I get it, it's a spotter. And some people are like, okay, it's a spotter. First of all, you're the driver. You know how important a spotter is, especially at a place like a Daytona or a Talladega, but road courses as well. What does TJ Majors do?
Oh, TJ Majors is, you could argue he's the most respected spotter in the garage.
Okay.
If I had to rank spotters, I would rank TJ first. I would rank somebody with the likes of Joel Edmonds, who he is Eric Almirola's spotter.
Okay.
I would put him in second. And I would say probably it's a close tie I would say it's a 3-way tie between Brett Griffin. He used to spot for Clint Boyer and Elliott Sadler. He currently spots for Justin Haley.
Okay.
I would rank Freddie Kraft right there. He's Bubba Wallace's spotter. He's a good spotter. And probably I'm going to say right there on the same level that Eddie DeHaan who is a Chase Elliott spotter.
Okay.
I've ranked them all right there close together with each other.
So for Josh Berry, who we saw win this past season,
Right.
maybe we'll see a breakout year.
Very, very possible.
Okay.
Very possible.
One more note in the Xfinity Series, then we'll take a break, talk Camping World Truck Series, soon to be Craftsman Truck Series. And we noted this last week on the show. Cole Custer, out of the Cup Series for 2023, is set to return to Xfinity Series competition for Stewart-Haas Racing. So he remains with the team. He just comes back down to the Xfinity Series, and it was not immediately said what number he was going to drive. We assumed on the show, because he's run it in his day since ARCA Menard Series competition through the Truck Series and his first time around in Xfinity, that it would be the 00. Stewart-Haas Racing confirmed that this week, announcing officially on Friday that Custer would again drive the 00 in that number in just the Xfinity Series, 2 trips to the Championship 4 and 9 Xfinity Series wins. Again, this is one of those deals where are you most comfortable? And Cole Custer obviously was very comfortable running Xfinity Series competition. I mean, look at what he did earlier this year when he was in the SS Greenlight racing car prepared by Stewart-Haas Racing. Look at how competitive he was throughout the course of the year running those select Xfinity Series races. This is where he's comfortable. This is where I think he needs to go back and get his confidence back up, because I think he's still a legitimate Cup Series driver, but he's lost confidence.
Amen. Amen to that. I mean, this is what he needs. And when he gets that confidence back, maybe he steps back up and you're looking at the guy that fills full car. Who knows?
Never know. Could happen. As mentioned, Camping World or Craftsman Truck Series is on deck. We'll do that right after this on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Steve West and Matt Nicholson here on screen. Producer John Myers is off screen, but doing a fantastic job in the background. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything that you've done to get this whole thing teched properly so that we could all be at our homes on this Thanksgiving weekend, and whatever you got going on this Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you're having a great time and being safe about it. And if you happen to go out for what I've long termed Black Eye Friday, hopefully you didn't get one. I'm staying away from shopping centers this weekend. I don't know about you. Hey, Camping World soon to be Craftsman Truck Series. And since we gave it to you for the Cup and Xfinity Series, let's go ahead and give you what is right now the top 10 vote getters in the most popular driver contest for the Truck Series. In alphabetical order, they are Matt Crafton, Haley Deegan, Matt DiBenedetto, Stuart Friesen, Carson Hocevar, Ty Majeski, John Hunter Nemechek, Ben Rhodes, and then the Smith boys, the unrelated Zane and Chandler Smith. Defending champion here is Haley Deegan, but interesting to note, Haley Deegan actually has no ride for 2023 yet. Matt Crafton's the longtime guy, but I got to admit, that was a really, really popular first win for one Matt DiBenedetto, and I tend to think he might have the inside line on that.
Yeah, coming at the, I guess you could say, coming at the expense of family. Anywho,
Sure.
I'm going to say it may be Zane Smith.
Okay. And that's certainly a viable one. By the way, voting for all 3 of these series is open through this coming Wednesday, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. You can vote once each day per email address for each of these different series through noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time this Wednesday, and then they will announce the winners during the NASCAR award ceremony. And is this the first time or the second time that the award ceremony now is not just Cup, it's going to include all 3 series?
Second
year. Okay.
They did it last year.
I thought they had, but I wanted to double check.
Right.
One more note in the Truck Series, the rebranded Tricon Garage Truck Series operation. This is formerly the DGR David Gilliland Racing operation. We told you recently they're not only moving from Ford to Toyota for 2023, they've expanded all the partnership out with Dead On Tools. The tool and work gear company is going to be a primary sponsor for both the 15 and 17 trucks driven by brothers Tanner and Taylor Gray, respectively. This is going to help them market Dead On Tools, their established line of hardware and storage, but it's also set to bring some publicity for a new line of tool belts and other accessories for the do-it-yourselfers and the pros. So apparently they're expanding everything out. So Dead On Tools trying to become the next Craftsman / Snap-on. Okay. Knock yourself out. By the way,
sorry, I had the mute button hit.
I understand. This is one of those situations where you go, well, wait a minute. We've got a deal now where Dead On Tools is a direct competitor to Craftsman, right? And that's a conflict of interest in the NASCAR world. Well, yes and no. Dead On Tools and their sponsorship predates Craftsman coming in. So Dead On's allowed to continue on with their partnership with Tricon specifically. If they wanted to move,
right,
that's when their competing sponsorships with the title sponsor Craftsman would come into play, and they wouldn't be allowed to do it. But as long as they stay with Tricon, they're fine.
Yep. That the old good old-fashioned grandfather rule.
Exactly. Some NASCAR news here. NASCAR attempted to, or fended off successfully, I should say, an attempt by the state of Ohio to tax race broadcasts. Yeah. Tuesday of this past week, the Ohio Supreme Court said that the state of Ohio's attempts to tax the broadcasts unlawful. The case stems from a NASCAR lawsuit going back to a period between 2005 and 2010 when the Ohio State Tax Commissioner's office claimed that the broadcasts were subject to the state's commercial activities tax, which would then cost the company a percentage of their overall annual sales. The court ruled that NASCAR's broadcast revenues, their licensing revenues, their media revenue, and all sponsorship fees were taxed wrongly, not subject to the state tax. In a split decision, the 4 justices said that they agreed with NASCAR. 3 of them dissented. We'll get into that here in a moment. The state had tried to argue that they imposed the tax on NASCAR's commercial activities, including the sale of broadcast rights in the state. But with that ruling, the state now has to reassess and adjust as necessary the fees imposed upon NASCAR at this point in time for that time period. It totals just under $530,000, not an insignificant amount of money. NASCAR's argument was that all commercial activities in Ohio, such as race broadcasts and the sale of merchandise, is done actually by other companies that are already taxed appropriately, and claimed that the tax was a, quote, unconstitutional expansion of tax liability for out-of-state content providers, which is of interest to people like us who are trying to get into syndication and to the Motor Racing Network and to the Performance Racing Network and to the Indycar Racing Network and all the other ones who would have any shows that might air on television or on radio in the state of Ohio. The majority ruling agreed, stated that taxing a broadcast, quote, did not lie within the tax commissioner's authority, unquote, and added that the broadcasts, the media, and the sponsorship agreements are fixed fee-based and do not vary with the amount of use. Their words, not mine. The three dissenting did try to state that the state tax commissioner should be allowed to tax NASCAR licensed products, such things like flags, mugs, shirts, keychains, collectible diecast, things that are produced and sold by BSI products. But NASCAR successfully argued there that that would actually amount to double taxing because those products are already taxed when they're sold initially. And they're right.
Yeah, sounds like to me somebody trying to get money that they weren't entitled to.
Yeah, and they picked the wrong people. I don't know whether the NFL, with the amount of money that they bring in, I don't know whether they would have kind of let that fly. But I get the funny feeling that NASCAR said, hey, listen, not on our watch. And truth be told, I think the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, NHL, pick a sport, any sport, truth be told, I think they would all pretty much come up with the same thing. That, hey, this is already being done. We're going through, and all the taxes that we're supposed to be paying, we're paying.
Yeah.
Stop trying to double taxes. Stop trying to make up money on our dime. If you got a problem, go figure it out on your own.
Yep, I agree.
As for that new television rights deal, NASCAR, according to the website Front Office Sports, is set to be seeking an increase in their rights fees of between 10 and 15% over what they're currently charging. Early next year, NASCAR is set to get into talks with Fox Sports and NBC Sports about renewing their deals, which is set to expire after the 2024 season. The current deal has the two networks paying NASCAR a total of $820 million a year. For the new deal, the sources told the website, again, this is Front Office Sports, that NASCAR is set to ask for a combined total of between $900 and $950 million annually. Now, Fox and NBC get the right of first refusal. They have an exclusive negotiating window right built into their current deals. But if no deal is reached with either or both, then other bidders would come in and would have the possibility, at least, of being able to come in. Now, ABC and ESPN have made some noise about getting back into NASCAR broadcasts. But again, they seem to be pretty happy with Formula One. As to whether or not they actually do it, I don't know. There's always CBS, which obviously, as we talked about earlier in the show, did the first live flag-to-flag coverage, and they are seeing success with the Superstar Racing experience. But there's also streaming services. There's Netflix, so I'm not really so certain is going to get into live sports anytime too soon. But Amazon Prime is doing it. Apple Plus is doing it as well, so they might not be outside the realm of possibility. And NASCAR have said that they want to try to get somewhere between an 8 and 10-year deal. That might be a little tricky in this economy, but let's face it, NASCAR is the king of motorsports ratings when it comes to TV here in the United States. They might just be able to get it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody will bite on it somewhere. It's just a question of who and when they bite on it. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing somebody like CBS come back in.
Love to see CBS come back in. It wouldn't bother me to see ABC, ESPN come back. And here's the reason why. The vast majority of the Formula One races happen early Sunday morning. There's little to no interference. And honestly, I believe that if I'm NASCAR, and I get it, USA is a much more available cable channel than NBC Sports was. But at the same point in time, they have been known for, and we even talked about this last week, they're putting some pretty big races, not on the main network, but on the USA network. And I might try to argue that ABC or CBS might be more willing to put it on the main network.
There's no question. I mean, ABC and ESPN, everybody's got access to ABC,
Sure.
ESPN, and I'm going to say 95 to 98%, if not 100%, have access to ESPN2 as well.
Yeah.
You won't have that problem.
No.
Now, the only one question mark I would have with CBS is, are you going to put anything on the CBS Sports Network?
Which very few people actually have.
Very, very, very few people actually have.
Yeah.
So, but with CBS, they have nothing interfering. And if they're
Until
going
the
to
fall.
Until the fall.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, and this would be the same for Fox. Fox has the first half of the year, so that's not a problem. But if CBS came in, they took over NBC's part of it, they have the NFL to deal with in that second half. And that does create a problem. If
Right.
CBS wanted the first half of the year and Fox took the second half, same situation. They've got the NFL. So now we got to figure this out. ABC doesn't have to worry about that. They've got Monday Night Football. Sundays are free and clear.
Yeah, the only thing that I could see interfering when ESPN and ABC is when they get to the latter half of the year, when you have that when you have COTA, Mexico City, Brazil, back to back to back.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be the only thing that would be interfering with it.
Right.
But other than that, ABC and ESPN is scot-free, just like you said.
If it's me and I'm ABC, ESPN, and this is just me, I'm putting Canada, Miami, COTA, USA. I'm putting probably Mexico, definitely putting Vegas on there, and I might put Brazil. So we're talking, that's half a dozen. That's 6 races that I'm going to put on ABC. Mm-hmm. Now, as you noted, there's a lot of them towards the latter half. I'm not so certain I would put Brazil on ABC, but that's a possibility. If they do, that's 7.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's really not a whole lot to worry about. And in that area, you're talking about coming to the end of the season. I might not have a problem if I'm ABC, ESPN, and I might not have a problem if I'm NASCAR. I think they might actually be the more, unless CBS says we're willing to put all of our races on the main network, which if they got the second half of the year, I don't know how they're going to do it. Unless you can get that guarantee, ABC, ESPN might be the better deal.
Well, it would with the CBS that would do, because CBS majority has the 325. They call it their 325 kickoff.
Sure.
Okay. That would push the races back to what everybody's been griping about, midday starts.
Right. Yeah, because you start to go Pacific time on that, it becomes real early.
Yep. It goes to those midday starts. Okay. Your Saturday night races wouldn't interfere with it, because your CBS broadcasts are your 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, and they're over by 6:30, 7:30, and then you got, say for example, you got Richmond, which is one of your classic Saturday night events.
Sure.
You start Richmond right when the kickoff ends. Boom, you're good.
Here's the fly in that ointment, which again, this is the second half of the year. For Saturday night races, and John and I know this, John works for a company that has an ABC affiliation, and I worked for that same company. College football. Saturday night college football.
True.
And we all know this. We've talked about this many, many times. Television, the ratings king when it comes to the sports world is the NFL and then college.
Yeah, and the thing about that one with the ABC, ESPN is they've got broadcasts on ABC and ESPN.
Exactly.
And ESPN2.
And they're about to start their exclusive rights agreement, because they're about to have it pulled away from the for the Southeastern Conference, because it's about to go away from CBS.
Yeah, that starts in 2024.
Right about the same time we're going to get ready to have this new contract set.
Bingo.
There's a lot of balls up in the air when we're juggling this one. It'll be interesting to watch this process.
Yep.
And then something that you've been talking about, and maybe we can convince Matt to do some on-scene broadcasting from there. Prestigious Snowball Derby set to come to the Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola, Florida, continuing to grab big names in the racing world to head down to the Panhandle to take part. As always, NASCAR very well represented. Just a couple of days ago, 2012 Cup Series title winner Brad Keselowski, he's the latest entry into the event. He'll be joined by fellow Cup drivers Eric Jones and William Byron at least. Maybe more coming. Xfinity Series drivers heading down there include Josh Berry, the soon-to-be Cup driver Noah Gragson, Connor Mosack and Sammy Smith. Craftsman Truck Series drivers that are heading down there: Chandler Smith, Ty Majeski, Corey Hyman, Carson Hocevar. If you're interested, the race is a 300-lap short track event, again at Five Flag Speedway next Sunday, not Saturday night. That's a little bit different. Next Sunday, December 4th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central start. You still thinking about going down there?
I'm giving strong consideration to it. But I looked early this morning. The updated entry list, there are 61 super late models on the entry list as of right now.
Big time. Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, we do know this. Chi-Town Mark, which if you're new to us, Chi-Town Mark and Rowdy Maglite, they are ARCA Menard Series super reporters. They follow the ARCA Menard Series pretty much all over the country. But they're going to be, Chi-Town Mark's going to be down there. And we're going to have him at least on the show next week. And again, Matt may be himself down there. So this may be worth it. I'll tell you what, let's do. I'm going to take the NHRA news here real quick, and then we're going to take our final break, and we'll finish up talking about American-based open wheel. Let's deal with this. And this is kind of an interesting move here. I wasn't expecting this. Your 3-time Pro Stock Motorcycle champion and the team that she's been competing with the last 3 years, they split. Angelle Sampey looking for a new opportunity after losing her ride with Vance and Hines. They've decided to go in another direction. They haven't said which direction that is yet. Team president Mike Kennedy called the 2022 season disappointing, even noting event wins at Norwalk, Ohio, and being the top event qualifier in 7 different races. Kennedy added, quote, "I've asked our crew chief, Andrew Hines, to do a full assessment of our NHRA racing operation to ensure we're in a position to compete for championships going forward. So for 2023, we'll be parting ways with rider Angelle Sampey. We wish her the best in the future endeavors for her. She's been an asset for our team the past 3 seasons, fan favorite, and her personality will be missed. They said they expect to announce a replacement rider soon. Sampey is far from done herself, it appears. She is expected to look for other opportunities with other teams. She's got quite the resume. She's got 3 Pro Stock Motorcycle Division titles, 46 event wins, 80 final rounds, all in 292 events going back to 1996. This is a bit of a surprise to me that Vance and Hines let her go as successful as she's been. They must have seen or felt that a change is needed. I don't know what it is that they're really going for here.
This personally to me is kind of dumbfounding, because you got somebody that is very successful on a pro stock motorcycle. She knows how to get it done. You won races this year. Your top qualifier in 7 events and they only run about half of them. I think 7 out of 15, 12 or 15, something like that. What more are you looking for?
And who are you going to get that's going to replace that performance?
Exactly. Who? That's the good question. That's the big question. Who?
I don't know. It makes very little to no sense to me to make this move, but hey, we're not in the Vance and Hines hallways, so we'll just have to trust them and see what it is that they've got planned.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who.
Yep. All right. As we noted, we've talked about almost everything else. We have no Superstar Racing Experience news from this week. We have no Formula E news from this week, but we do have some IndyCar information we need to pass along. So, hey, let's go into CRN overtime. We'll take this final break on the show, and we'll be right back and talk about some IndyCar news when we come back on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, let's do one more segment. What the heck, right? We'll call it CRN Overtime because, well, that's what it is. We're usually done with the regular show by now, but we got more to talk about, so we're gonna. And we've noted this on the show in the past. NTT Data IndyCar Series, much shorter season than, well, really almost all the other series that we cover, save maybe Formula E. For the past few seasons, they've been running 17 races. Starts in March, maybe early April, goes into September. As listeners on this show know, NASCAR, Formula One, the NHRA all start at least a couple of weeks earlier, and they go longer into November to be exact. So what's the future hold for IndyCar? Well, series president Jay Fry says he's working on it. Said he would really like to be able to expand out the schedule. We noted on the show that Juncos Racing, Chevrolet, and IndyCar all worked together on a demonstration run a couple of weeks ago down in Argentina that proved to be very successful. And when he spoke glowingly about that stop, it was then asked if IndyCar was set to go back to Argentina or just South America in general. And Fry responded, quote, "Never say never. Whatever we expected in going there, it exceeded it. It was awesome." And then he said that the series does want to establish the tracks that are already on the schedule, but at the same time, they're looking into adding new tracks to the schedule, said that getting the schedule up to 20 races should be their goal. Fry was quoted as saying, quote, "My personal opinion is I've always thought 20 is kind of the sweet spot. We're at 17 right now. But you don't just add 3 to add 3. You add 3 that are great events. You know, there's something around it, an event. Iowa was gone. When they came back, it's now become a big event. We talked about the fact that they've got concerts before and after the races on Saturday and on Sunday, and we're talking big names. Carrie Underwood, Kenny Chesney's going to be there. I mean, these are big names.
Yeah, this year's huge.
Absolutely. Kind of want to go. Anyway, so if we were to add, he goes on to say, so if we're to add an oval, that gets us to 18 races. We'd want that oval to become a big event. He also noted that there's some pressure to look at racing outside of the U.S., maybe add another race into Canada onto the Toronto race, maybe go racing in Mexico. Now that you got Pato O'Ward, he's part of this and is Mexican native. Maybe you go there. Again, the interest is there in South America, as witnessed by this demonstration run down in Argentina, and they've run Brazil many, many times. So IndyCar looking to expand out, but they want to make sure they do it right. My question is this. What's right?
Good question. It's really hard to say what would be right. I mean, because what other oval? I mean, a couple weeks ago, I think we discussed what other ovals you could add. I mean, you've had Richmond pop on and off I'm gonna say within the last 3 or 4 years.
And truth be told, I think it would be great to go back to Richmond.
Probably would. I mean, honestly, if you want it, and this is me, and I'm thinking way outside of the box here.
Sure.
If you want to add an oval and get something really revived, memory serves me correct. While they ran there were some pretty doggone good races at a little track in Joliet, Illinois called Chicagoland Speedway.
Mm-hmm. And last we checked, there wasn't anything going on there.
No, there hadn't been anything going on there for quite a while. So,
would you do... I'm hesitant to say Nashville Super Speedway because you got the Nashville Grand Prix, so the Music City Grand Prix. So I don't think Nashville Super Speedway is there. Would you go to Kentucky?
Yeah, you could. I mean, because there's been some pretty good events from my recollection at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then they had, even though this basically became a Ford storage ground now. Yeah, Kentucky would be viable for oval. Chicagoland. If this is how I would rank them for viable ovals. Go somewhere where you haven't been in a while, or somewhere where nobody's at now.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, Chicagoland. I'm going to even throw Kansas in there.
Okay.
Personally, I think Kansas would be an incredible facility to have an IndyCar, NASCAR oval doubleheader.
It would be. And IndyCar doesn't really have anything else anywhere near Kansas.
Other than Iowa.
And if you separate the two of them out, which should be fairly easy to do on the schedule. Shouldn't be a problem.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Texas has kind of fell off. My opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. But, they seem to be pretty happy with Texas, and Texas seemed to be pretty happy with them. So that's probably going to stick.
Dream scenario. It's no secret what my dream scenario would be, even though whoever the insurance broker / agent would be at Lloyd's of London would be in a gold mine, because all 24, 28, even 30 drivers would be re-upping their life policy, because my dream scenario would be, let's see what we got on a super speedway.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd love to see him come to Talladega.
Even though somebody leaves the ballpark, you may find them landing in Lincoln.
Sure.
But that would be, Russell, that's my Christmas present if you're listening. That would be
It'd be nice, but
that would be the dream scenario.
Yeah,
but
realistically, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, my dream scenario is to put him back at Richmond. That's the beginning, because they've had success there. They put on great racing there. I think it'd be a fantastic match to put him there.
Scenario,
I'd love to see him back there.
My secondary dream scenario, let's call it that. Send them back to Las Vegas, but they're not going to go back to Las Vegas because of how horrific that race ended years ago.
Yeah,
and it's still a scar in everyone's mind, and it will be a permanent scar, unfortunately.
Yeah, look up Dan Weldon if you want to know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I would say Kentucky, Chicagoland 1A, 1B. Kansas 2, Richmond 3.
Okay. And that's just ovals. Obviously, I wouldn't add a whole lot of oval tracks. I would probably... You're talking about adding 3 more races. I think, to me, the ideal scenario is a 2-1, 2 road courses to 1 oval. Yeah. But I could see them doing 2 ovals to 1 road course.
Sure.
But because of and again, a lot of these Formula One drivers that have talked about coming over to IndyCar say that they are afraid to come over to IndyCar because of the oval races. That's why I say maybe go 2-to-1 ratio of road tracks to ovals. But I could see them adding 2 ovals to 1 road course, but I don't think you add... In fact, I'm almost positive you don't add 3 ovals.
Here's an oval that was honestly far from my mind that I didn't think about. Phoenix.
Fairly flat track. Yeah, that could work.
You're already at Gateway. You're already at Iowa. You're already at Texas. That's not counting Indianapolis. Gateway, Iowa, Texas is your only 4 ovals.
Yeah.
Ovals. Not your only oval, not counting Indy.
Right. And I know, and I say this knowing that they already run the Long Beach Grand Prix, but if you separated it out, after they get done with the redo of Auto Club Speedway, which is supposed to be that mixture of Richmond, Bristol, and Martinsville, wonder if they'd look there.
Oh, that's a tough one, because I would need to see the finished product on the track first to see if it would.
I would agree. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah. Over to Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, they got something of a different look coming for 2023. Their 3 drivers will remain the same. It's Graham Rahal, Christian Lundgaard, and Jack Harvey. But 2 of them are going to have their numbers changed. Graham Rahal, not surprisingly, going to remain in his familiar number 15. But Harvey and Lundgaard swap numbers. Jack Harvey takes over the number 30. Lundgaard moves to the 45. The Midwestern supermarket chain Hy-Vee will remain as the sponsor on the 45, part of their multi-year deal with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. So while being an associate sponsor of the 30, the team has said that a new primary sponsor announcement for that 30 is coming soon. 2023 is Harvey's 4th full-time season. Lundgaard heading into his 2nd season in the series. The pit crew is going to remain the same. Really, it's the drivers swapping cars. What do they see here, or is this going, hey, we needed to shake something up here, so let's switch the drivers and see if that works?
It's a good question. Because really, one didn't overly outperform the other one last year. They were fairly equal.
I would agree.
Everything that I saw. So I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here with that. But who knows what they see that we don't see. that's behind the walls there in Brownsburg, Indiana, where their shop is.
It could be that they're just trying to shake things up a little bit.
Very well could be. Very easily well could be.
We'll see if it works out for them.
Yeah.
Over to Team Penske, where driver Scott McLaughlin set to have a new primary sponsor for 2023. It's the company Good Ranchers. They're going to debut as a primary sponsor right here in our own backyard over at Barber Motorsports Park. As part of the deal, they are set to partner with Indianapolis Motor Speedway for some promotional activities surrounding the Indy 500 as well. And all of this while they're going to be donating more than 1 million meals to local food banks around the country, noting that for every box you purchase from Good Ranchers, they donate 10 meals to the needy. I got to admit, I had never heard of Good Ranchers before. I'm going to check into them and see what they offer.
Same here.
And then there's the guy who owns Team Penske and, well, everything else that McLaren and Trackhouse don't. Roger Penske continuing to rack up honors. He's set to be in London coming up here on December the 4th. He's going to receive the Autosport Gold Medal for his contributions to motorsports. It may be something that you've never heard of, but it's actually pretty cool. It's all presented by the Autosport Awards. The gold medal, the highest honor for these awards, recognizing an individual for their lifetime of service to motorsports and leaving a legacy for future generations. Well, if you're talking Roger Penske, I would say that there may be no one more deserving. In case you didn't know his resume, here you go. In addition to owning the IndyCar series in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Team Penske, his racing operation, has won 17 titles, 18 Indy 500 wins, 231 race wins. That's just in IndyCar. In NASCAR across the Xfinity and Cup Series, 10 titles. 3 Daytona 500 wins, 219 race wins. And then there's the entries and the successes that he's had in Formula One, Trans Am, Can-Am, IMSA, and the Australian V8 Supercar Series. Yeah. If there's a guy who hadn't won it before who deserves it, ladies and gentlemen, Roger Penske's the guy that with the picture right next to that.
Yep, you're looking at him.
Good night, almighty. Roger Penske, congratulations to you.
No doubt.
Oh, by the way, another honor for Team Penske, one that he could grab along with his driver, Will Power, is the International Driver of the Year. The 4 nominees for that honor at the Autosport Awards, again, Team Penske's Will Power, 2022 IndyCar champion, F1 title winner Max Verstappen, and Formula One points runner-up finisher Charles Leclerc. Your 4th driver is the Formula E 2022 champion Stoffel Van Dorn. No, NASCAR obviously is not represented here. No disrespect to Will Power. If I'm going to be picking the guy who's going to walk away with that award, it's going to be Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it's not going to be a walk away. I think it's going to be a runaway.
I think so. I mean, 15 race wins and all the records that he set this year in Formula One, like him or not, the guy's going to win all kinds of awards this offseason. There's no doubt. Andretti Autosport driver Romain Grosjean is a spokesman for a company that you probably have never heard of, but is a new Czechoslovakian-based car company. They're about to put out a new road-going hypercar. The company is named Praga, Praga. Grosjean's not only the brand ambassador, but is working with the engineers and designers to help the company build a genuine, these are his words, not mine, genuine, uncompromised 2-person track performance car. They're calling it the Bohema. Why do I have Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody running through my head? Anyway, having driven a pre-production version of it, Grosjean said, quote, "I was astonished by the Bohema's amazing performance on track, its accessibility on road, and the ease of transition between the two. Praga has truly delivered on my challenge. On the road, you get a smooth ride. The car eliminates the bumps. You can chat with the passenger. Everything is calm and okay." So hypercar, what does exactly that mean for you as far as what it will do performance-wise? Well, power comes from a pretty interesting choice. It's not a V8, it's not a V10, it's not a V12. The power is coming from a Nissan-sourced 3.8-liter twin-turbo V6, one that they use, Nissan does, in their GTR car. In this case, however, it's going to up the horsepower to about 700, and this is all going to be if you were asking for a plane earlier,
there it is.
Matt was talking about, that was one of them. So about 700 horsepower in a car that they say will weigh, when road ready, in other words, filled up with gas, oil, all the different brake fluids and all the other necessary fluids and fuel, just slightly over 1 ton, so just slightly over 2,000 pounds and 700 horsepower. They say that the car is aiming for a top speed of right around 200 miles per hour. This is going to be a very low volume car. They plan to only build about 20 to 30 a year over a 4 to 5 year span. They say that they will cap that number at 89 versions, only 89.
Wow.
How much? Well, if you need to ask, you can't afford it, right? But I'll tell you anyway. Expect a price tag of about $1.33 million in U.S. money upon its official release. What was that all?
Yeah.
But it's got Romain Grosjean's name on it. Formula One IndyCar driver. Jay Leno is going to have one. We know it.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Well, all right. So you are spending a couple more days up at your mom's place up in the Carolinas.
Yeah, we're going to come home tomorrow afternoon.
I got you. And then maybe go down to Pensacola next weekend, maybe after the show.
Yeah, we'll see how everything goes next week. I'll know definitely by Thursday if I'm going or not.
I got you, and we'll talk about it all next week. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap this up. We appreciate you checking us out. Again, did a little bit of CRN overtime here just because we could. Again, being internet only, it gave us that opportunity to do it, and we were able to and enjoyed the opportunity to do it. So thanks to Matt from joining us up in the Carolinas.
And we didn't throw the caution flag before the checkers fell.
That's right. We decided not to do that, NASCAR. John, thanks for everything, because from everything that I heard and saw, the YouTube version came out fantastic. So hopefully that will be a continuance for us as we did it from 3 separate locations. 2 in Alabama, 1 up in the Carolinas. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week, and I think we're going to be back on everything, which means the radio version as well, coming up next weekend right here on the Championship Racing Network. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. Be
This
safe
is
if
a
you're traveling.
presentation of the Championship Racing Network.